It's not just Russians who have stakes here. Putin's continuation in office will be assessed by his strategic partners as well. Let's talk about New Delhi. How have Russia-India relations been under Vladimir Putin, and where do we see them going from here? But we are starting tonight with Moscow's perspective. Russia is disappointed with India. Do not expect Vladimir Putin or any top-level Russian official to say that in public, but it's a view that has been quietly conveyed at various levels in India. Disappointment not because India is buying less arms from Russia or because there have been delays on the Indian side in finalizing various deals. In the ruling circles in Moscow, there is a sense that India has not measured up to its full potential as a powerful political and military force in the region. Curiously, it's a point also made in Washington, D.C. India and Indians will disagree, of course. They will point to India's rising economic growth figures. Structural reforms are making India competitive worldwide. In foreign policy, India stared down the Chinese over Doklam only a few months back and rejected China's Belt and Road Initiative. India is a leading player in sustainable energy and other fields, but sources told WION that the Russians see a powerful and expanding Indian economy, low poverty levels and rising living standards as the key. And they believe India hasn't arrived there yet. India hasn't achieved its full potential. They admit that they're also looking at India from the prism of Russia's national interests. A powerful Indian economy could help Russia balance off its dependence on China. It could also help Russia's plan for a Eurasian Economic Union. This would counter the Chinese-driven Belt and Road. It may also help Russia lessen the impact of American sanctions. As we said, this is from the Russian perspective. These issues are more critical now since this is Putin's last six-year term as president. Unless he goes for another constitutional fix, who will succeed Vladimir Putin? He's known to favor a systemic change, meaning Russia's new leader must fulfill certain conditions. He must have experience of government, administered a region or a province. He should have served in Moscow to get an understanding of how the world works. Know Russia's friends and enemies. For India, this is important because Putin is probably the last of those Russian leaders whose views of India were conditioned during the last days of the Soviet Union. And Putin has always had a favorable view of New Delhi. While those around him in the ruling circles know and understand India, they may be preoccupied with harsh reality, the harsh reality that relations with America are getting worse. American sanctions are squeezing Russia's economy and pushing it deeper into China's embrace. Neither Vladimir Putin nor his successor would want their country to be a vassal of China, which explains the continued transfer of strategic platforms to India, including nuclear submarines, anti-ballistic missile systems, and a new line of stealth frigates. The Russians are signaling the Chinese they will not be taken for granted. And India is very important to them. India cannot be expected to pull Russia's irons out of the fires of its own making, though. But a weakened Russia or one dancing to Beijing's tunes limits India's strategic and foreign policy options. India has been trying to build new strategic muscle through alliances, but this is still work in progress. And Putin will be missed, but there are lessons to be learnt from Delhi and Moscow's inability to build on a shared partnership. Hopefully, the new generation of leaders in Moscow will realize that, and India by then would have also realized that economic transformation the economic transformation of its own people. But we're getting ahead of ourselves. Vladimir Putin is here to stay, at least in the near future. Russia's relations, meanwhile, with the West are worsening by the day. The diplomatic war over the poisoning of Sergei Skripal and his daughter continues. Today, British Foreign Secretary Boris Johnson pinned the blame directly on Russian President Putin.
Obviously, we must beware of what Vladimir Putin's Russia is doing. But I want to stress one thing again, that the quarrel of the UK government is not with Russian people. It is not with Russians living here in this country. It is not with people who come to the UK to make their lives and contribute to our country. We have nothing against the Russians themselves. There is to be no Russophobia as a result of what is happening. Our quarrel is with Putin's Kremlin and with his decision. And we think it overwhelmingly likely that it was his decision to direct the use of a nerve agent on the streets of the UK, on the streets of Europe, for the first time since the Second World War. That is why we are at odds with Russia.
The United States, France and Germany have joined the United Kingdom in condemning Russia. In a rare joint statement, all the four countries slammed this attack. Washington has also stepped up heat on Moscow. The Trump administration has slapped fresh sanctions, this time on several Russian organizations and individuals. These sanctions were in retaliation for interference alleged interference, I would say, in the 2016 American presidential election. But US President Donald Trump did not mention these reasons. The White House said that they will continue to build pressure on Russia.
I think that's something that Russia is going to have to make that determination. They're going to have to decide whether or not they want to be a good actor or a bad actor. I think you can see from the actions that we've taken up until this point, we're going to be tough on Russia until they decide to change their behavior.
Russia is mulling a diplomatic retaliation. Going by some claims, Russia could also expel British diplomats and suspend high-level meetings with the UK. Kremlin spokesperson Dmitry Peskov said retaliatory measures could be announced very soon.
Они себя не заставят долго ждать. В этом смысле, естественно, все шаги будут хорошо обдуманными и будут полностью соответствовать интересам нашей страны.